Welcome, everyone. Bradley Whitford here. I want to thank you for letting us into your homes this evening to talk a little bit about the politics of horror and to help, hopefully, end the horror of politics that we are experiencing every day. While we're here to discuss the making of Get Out and how a work of art may too closely resemble the reality for so many in this country, the purpose of this conversation is to raise money to get to the people who can use it on the ground to make sure that Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are victorious this Tuesday, January 5th. So far, we've already raised over $80,000 thanks to your generosity. We know this is a difficult time. We want you to be safe, and we appreciate you supporting this effort. Here to tell you a little bit about how your donations will be put to use is Ted Terry, the youngest mayor to serve in the city of Clarkson, Georgia. He is currently the first vice chair of the Georgia Democratic Party, and if he looks familiar, it's because you may remember him from his makeover on Queer Eye. Here he is, Ted.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate that. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for helping us in this getting out for Georgia tonight. You know, after flipping Georgia blue in November, our state's voters are more energized than ever before. We have already seen unprecedented turnout for this runoff election. Over 3 million Georgians have already voted, which is the highest turnout in any runoff in our state history, and we're almost there. And so I want to just have a brief message for any of the Georgians that may be watching. Number one, if you've already requested an absentee ballot, make sure you fill it out as soon as possible and drop it off at a secure drop box location in your county. You can find a ballot box near you at gaballotdropbox.org. That's gaballotdropbox.org. Number two, polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Election Day this Tuesday. And you can always visit georgiademocrat.org/vote, Georgia spelled out democrat.org/vote to find more information about when and where and how to vote. And then finally, if you have any questions, any issues about voting, where to vote, issues at the polls on Election Day, we have a 24-hour hotline, our voter protection hotline. That number is 888-730-5816. And of course, you can find all of this information on our website at georgiademocrat.org. And thank you, everyone, for all of your support. Those donations are helping fuel our Get Out the Vote effort. It's happened today, it's happening tomorrow, and it's happening on Tuesday. Back to you, Brad.
Thank you. Listen, I am required, unfortunately, to say something nice about Josh Molina because he helped raise more than $5,000 for Georgia tonight. So far, I have nothing. If something occurs to me later, I'll bring it up. But the reason we're here, I am very excited. Truly, I'm a very lucky person in terms of the experiences I have had as an actor, and the greatest was with this guy, Jordan Peele. Of course, many people know him from the Key and Peele days, but it's his filmmaking that brings us here tonight. Jordan, say hi.
Hi.
Hi. It's so good to have you here, man.
Was it really the greatest? Was it the greatest?
It was pretty. Listen. No.
already?
And
And then I said, "Is it the greatest?" He said, eh.
ultimately, it was the greatest. Here's the thing: when we're shooting it, I never know. Do you know when you're shooting it if it's going to be great?
I knew. I
You
knew.
know.
When the first time I saw you guys read the thing in the table read scenario, I believe we were in some kind of hotel convention center in Fairhope,
Yeah.
Alabama.
Yes, I remember.
But yeah, first time I watched you guys read, I was like, no, this is gonna, if they actually let me complete the film and they let people see this, it's gonna do it's gonna do something crazy.
Well, it's so interesting because I don't feel like I ever. It's funny because I play a lot of cocky people, but I like my standard joke is I stand behind none of my work. I mean, I never feel like you end a take and go, yeah. But what I was going to get to was I remember talking to you. You called us into Loop, and I was like, "How is it?" And you're like, "I think it's really good." And think I probably said to you, "Well, you have to believe that, because you're in the cult and you've been doing this for many years." And then I saw it at Sundance, and it was like a Bose ad. I mean, I had never seen a souffle rise like like that.
Wow. Thank you. That is so nice. And what a real leap of faith from all of you, all of the performers. I got a higher caliber of actor than I should have gotten off of the pitch, because this was a movie that it's just a leap of faith. The script, the title, Get Out, it all could go really wacky and not good. And so for you guys to jump on board, I think meant that you guys trusted me on some level, that like, no, this is going to be, we're going to try and walk that tightrope. So it's going to be actually really good and fun.
Yeah. I distinctly remember reading the script exactly where I am sitting right now, and closing it and going in and saying to my wife, the first thing I said was, "This is one of those." There are moments where you read something where it's like a forehead knocker, where it's like, why haven't we been doing this? Why haven't we seen this version of it? And the idea, and I know you've talked about this, the idea of just pressing race. I know that the horror genre is meaningful for you because it's a place where unable to talk about. And I had not seen it pressed through the genre in that way. At the same time, I thought Jesus, this is the freshest script I've read in a long time. My second thought was, if you get this wrong, like if the tone is just a little off, and you're playing selfish. I'm playing a funny, race. A racist guy. Like I knew it had to be right in tune.
Yeah, and I think you could do a version of this movie that's like the wacky comedy that is just it's just a shitty movie, really. But I think doing the actual horror film that's meant to be scary is on paper and in actuality it villainizes white people, or calls out the villainry of white people, specifically white liberal ideology and that whole behavior. And so that was really scary for people to jump onto. Right. But also just to see the trope of victimization of Black people on screen too, for me is also tired, and has to be done in a way that brings something new and important to that conversation. So there was Yeah, for me, it was a do or die thing, because I did feel like if I didn't get it right, man, was my career going to be over.
Well, it's interesting. I notice in the experiences that I've had, one thing I knew about this, because I remember I went to a restaurant and saw you and we had a beer. And
A funny story about that.
oh no.
I remember we looked down, and it was Tony Goldwyn was at a table across the
Oh
Tony,
yeah.
guy who played the bad friend from Ghost.
Yeah.
That's how my generation knows Tony Goldwyn as bad friend from Ghost. The current generation knows him as
President.
as a president in Scandal. But I was looking at him and I was thinking, man, if Brad turns me down, Brad turned me down.
Yeah, I'm the road company Tony Goldwyn. Yeah, you.
No, okay, sorry, go on. That was a long road.
No, that was good. No, but I could tell that there's basically two kinds of stories that get told in Hollywood. The ones that really work, there in television, there's the unmistakable stench of people doing something that they think they can sell. And it's as tired an exercise as telling a joke that you don't actually think is funny. And then there are people who are bursting with a long need to tell a certain story. And I could tell that you had that kind of energy. One thing I wanted to get to, how does this movie, how did it get made? Was it the conversation with Sean? Was this a script, an amorphous idea that when you had this conversation with Sean, who was one of our producers, that made you sort of focus on it? Where did it come from?
So the script I'd been writing for many years, or this, I should say, the story I had been outlining for many years. So by the time I sat down with Sean McKittrick, who of QC Entertainment, formerly Darko Entertainment, I told him the story. We just sat down, had coffee, and I think right there, he probably was prepared to, but he said, "Okay, let's do this. I'll give you a little bit of money to write this, and we're going to try and make it for $5 million." So along the way, a couple of fortunate turns happened. Blumhouse heard of it, and so Blumhouse came in. That was a big, they're the modern masters of horror, and Jason has so much street cred with the genre, so that's just huge for it. And of course, we were introduced to Universal and brought into the Universal studio system. So it was kind of it was this path that kind of snowballed. And once the thing was sold, I had to write it. But when we had the script and it was good, the rest, there wasn't a whole lot more pushing that needed to happen.
And did you know the whole story when you were pitching it to Sean? I mean, did you have it in your head?
Yeah. I just knew that the intricacies of the plot were going to be the reason I was going to get this thing made. If he could recognize the classic old school thriller devices in there, that he could see, it wouldn't be the wacky version. It would be that I at least had this thing that doesn't exist yet in mind. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And it hadn't been it had been quite a while since there was a social commentary horror thriller, right? It had been a while, hadn't it?
Well, I think of all horror and thriller as social commentary. It's, I think Get Out there's a slight reinvention with Get Out in how a film can sort of lay a thesis, I think, and it does feel very much like it feels very much like that to me. I don't know. What was the question?
No, I was just thinking that it felt like it had been a while since there had been something that broke out of the genre, like Rosemary's Baby, which I know was one of your favorite movies. It just sort of felt like it hadn't been done in a little while.
Yeah, the reason I decided to write the film was because I was feeling this lack of my favorite type of horror and in the being made, and horror is my favorite genre, So I felt like there was I saw an opportunity there. I just thought I can make something that will break through, and the social commentary part of it, I have to be honest with you, it didn't start as a decision to make a movie to say something. It started like everything I make to entertain. It's the idea of how can I hack the system? How can I make something how can I hack people's brains and make them like it, even if they don't want to like it?
Right.
And through comedy and everything I've sort of learned about comedy, there's something special when something special happens when you locate the truth. When you have that little moment where something rings true, whether it's in a joke or an improv scene or in real life, when something rings true, it gets the laugh. And so in following that notion of follow the truth, lo and behold, it sort of you end up getting it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily looking for that.
Right. I remember you talking about how, and I've gone back and watched the Key and Peele stuff again, and I can see the sort of training going on there, how those experiences and the experiences of doing comedy really helped you. And I remember you one day on the set saying horror is actually very rhythmically similar to comedy. That there is, you're setting up, and then you're pulling a trap door, and it's either a laugh or it's a scream. But you found a similarity in those journeys, right?
Yeah. You get a sense of the audience as a whole, and you get a sense of what's going to make. In comedy, you get a sense of, okay, well, you have a joke that makes. Sometimes the best joke is the one that the one woman back there gets and no one else gets, and she just goes, ah! But often you want to get everybody, right? That's what feels great when you get an entire room laughing at once. Something special is happening, and so that's what the art form of comedy really is. Like, the instrument is your audience. You're trying to play and manipulate this audience in this weird way. And so for me, the translation, the easiest translation was this idea that if you lead an audience somewhere, you can subvert where they think it's going to go. If you can set an audience up, if you can predict where they think you're going to take it, then you can surprise them. And that's when you can have them in the palm of your hand. And it happens it's happened to me in moments in my comedy career, and that I followed that in my screenwriting.
Yeah, it's like the entire time you're shaping this story, it seems to me you're walking a line of it happens in all storytelling, but you need to set stuff up, but you must not anticipate. And it's a very fine line to keep an audience in a place where you can take them somewhere without telling them where you're going to take them.
Which is one of my biggest tools as a director and a screenwriter is, first of all, is the fact that I'm both. So I can disrespect a script really without caring about it. No one's going to come and knock on my, and I can in search for these little moments, these things that feel real, that when you see them. As you know, Brad, I'm so pro improv on my movies.
Yes.
I remember you specifically, we really set loose. I mean, you were kind of I think you and Rel, I should get props where props is due. Little Rel Lowry too. You guys, I think were both sort of set out to find these truthful moments and these things that rang true. And you both just found these classic moments that, no one will know it wasn't in the script, but just these little tiny things. I remember when you were doing, showing Chris around the house, you had this great little improv. Found these little, some little candle holder or something. You said, picked up in Bali. And it was a great little improvisational moment. It was a classic, like, scene's over. You got, I can call cut, or you can just say one more thing and leave, and you did it, walk out of the frame. But it was just a great moment. And obviously it had a plant to the idea that this guy was a collector of cultures in it. So anyway, it's just to say that I'm constantly working on the scripts, even on set, as you know, and encouraging you to find those moments. And then I'm usually continuing to work on it all the way until in the edit.
Yeah, and that's a rare combination, because often if you it's sort of like Lord of the Flies when you open up the improv thing on a movie, and a story can get flaccid and loose, and it's fun to watch the improv, but it's not fitting in. But I felt like that movie, everybody's improvs, it didn't disrupt the tightness of the telling of the story. What was it? You seemed. First of all, people need to understand how many days did we shoot? 20 something.
It was 21 days, and then we shot two or three more days of additional photography.
Right. That's very fast. That's very little money. When we're shooting, in order to get through the day, there's no, we're doing a number of, how many pages a day? We're
no idea.
21 into, we're doing like 9-10 pages a day, which is extraordinary. Is a real television pace. What you seemed, was it just your experience on Key and Peele? I mean, I sort of thought afterwards, like, there's something great about the experience of, like, you're basically shooting, I don't know how many sketches were in a Key and Peele, but you were involved beginning to end in these things. Did that give you a kind of confidence? Because these are Spartan filmmaking conditions and financially.
Absolutely. And Peter Atencio is the director of vast majority of Key and Peele. And, as the writer, producer, and actor, I got to sort of watch him work in every capacity. And so, yeah, that was a real director training, it turned out. That was a film school, and I didn't realize it. And it's almost as if the film school was go make 300 short films, and you can do everything except direct.
Right.
And then I get in there, and then when I finally get to direct, I felt like I was kind of shot out of a cannon, because I had everyone else's perspective fresh in my head.
Right. I mean, from my point of view, you always sort of are sussing out where a director is coming from, and I, just because it's your first movie, it's incredibly low budget, it's going really fast. I was just sort of worried about, everybody was worried about like the pressure on you, and then very quickly realized that, you were fine with it. I like, did you, were you surprised? Did you feel like, did you have a sense, from my point of view, I felt like very quickly you're like, yeah, oh, I can do this. I just know when I first directed, I was just terrified, and it took a little while, but you pretty quickly felt like you knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I did. I had the confidence from all this build up that we're talking about, but I think I always rely on this idea of the story and the film being bigger than me, and it's a way, as an artist, the biggest thing that gets in an artist's way is his or her own ego. I truly believe that. And so I'm always trying to, figure out ways to keep my ego in check, because when that sneaks in there, it fucks shit up, almost always. So anyway, I truly, sort of submit to this idea that the film, the movie, the story is important. I'm less important, and that kind of gives me a little bit of a freedom that frees me up to be confident in a way. It's not about me. I got to execute this thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're if there's fear or insecurity, it's just about it's about the story. It's not about yourself in a way.
Yeah, if I'm thinking too hard about, man, what we were talking about before, if this fails, I'm gonna, there's my career. I just sunk my whole life into this. If I'm thinking about too much of that, or thinking this didn't go right, I'm panicking, and I lose sight of that big picture. It really, really takes a sort of, it takes I think part of what gives me a certain power as a director and as a screenwriter as well, but I feel like the same script can be done an infinite amount of ways and be great.
Right.
And there's an infinite amount of ways you can blow it too. But I feel like if I was one of the type of directors that was like, no, there's one way, there's one vision, it's mine. If anything goes off that rail, then it's done. Like, that would be too stressful.
Yeah.
So embrace the collabo.
Yeah. No, and one thing that I think that's absolutely true. I think there is so much insecurity on a set, and we'll talk about this, and it accelerates. The more you've done before, the sort of insecurity can get in there. But like, I remember on West Wing, which was just like a tunnel of just a lot of work, and out of insecurity, everybody starts thinking this scene has to be played this way. It must be this way. And if you're lucky enough to get enough experience, which is a weird thing that you can get in television, which I think you got and I got in these different worlds, you begin to relax and go, no, there's 1,000 ways that this can go. And I am alarmed when I have a director who thinks they know exactly what they want. It's like bad child rearing. Like, it's like overly control. It's like parenting. The one time I directed, I realized I read all these directing books, and then I realized, this is just parenting. Like, I want these. We, as a director, you owe it to your actors and to your audience, to let them, surprise you. And I think because you're an actor, you're like, oh yeah, I like to watch you have fun. And you did not create it was a very loose set. I mean, you're directing us like Obama. It was always a very loose set.
You would work for me a third time if you could.
I'd absolutely, yeah, for a third time. Oh man, God, it is like, talk about how difficult stuff is to talk about. I, as a joke, said somewhere on social media, I said, I didn't even know that line was a joke, and I was joking, and nobody understood. It's a certain irony deficiency out there.
Well, it's part of that is, even in casting the film, a lot of questions were answered about the roles to me. I think I had originally been picturing a scarier version of the Armitages, physically scarier. Those, the type of actors that are kind of always creepy when you see them in things.
Josh.
Yeah, Josh. Josh, like Josh.
Yeah, physically horrific. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but he turned us down for the Dean role, so we couldn't. When we found, when I realized that it was you and Catherine, it was this real sort of eureka moment. And by the way, also people with serious comedy chops, I had this fear that if people could come into this and once again thinking, it's the Billy Madison guy. This is the, but the chance to make you two scary, to me was a quest that was like
important to the movie. I've never seen an actor access that kind of pain, and again, this was not like okay, we're gonna spend all day on this scene and we'll keep everything quiet for Dan. Like, he could just go there. And with such legitimacy and force, and I just feel like it's so grounded the movie. I'm gonna get to some more stuff. Hold it. Give more money, everybody. Give more money.
Oh, yeah.
I got to tell you that. And I'll call you personally. I'm going to call 2 donors tomorrow personally and thank them. And if you want to auction off,
clear your afternoons, folks.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you. It was the reception of this movie. Did it surprise you? Did it, did it overwhelm you? What was your response when the reviews, and then you realized that this was going to become, a kind of a cultural phenomenon on top of a hit? Was that disorienting?
The whole ride, when they told me that it had a release date, I felt like something special was going to happen. and I just didn't know if it was going to be a good special or a bad special. I thought it could be one of those very bad things where I have to leave the country or something. But so the realization that wasn't the case was like, well, shit, this is going to be fun. And then it was just such a surreal journey to get that overwhelming acknowledgement from the Black community, especially that they felt heard, was special. I knew I was making a movie for us. I knew I was making a movie for the me that didn't feel represented in the genre, and for everybody who, for all the Black people who were screaming at the screen,
right?
Have some sense, get the fuck out of the house, get some Black people in here so somebody could do the right thing. To make that movie, when that hit home, and I felt that was just an extreme warmth.
Yeah.
And then everything after that was just kind of gravy. I mean, it was just this amazing adventure of seeing how far this thing could go.
Well, and finally, the neoliberal casual racists felt represented too, and that meant a lot to me.
Well, kudos, because kudos to them. They, honestly, I think that is the one thing I will say about the unconsciously racist white liberals is they're ready to watch that movie and to try and understand. They're ready to lash that. There's a penance that some people are ready for, and I don't know how we get there, but I was
happy to provide the service.
I was happy that white people seemed to get it, that right. Some or many,
yeah,
and it spoke to me about the power of story, that I could tell something in sort of a perspective that had always been told to me is like, people aren't going to buy it, people aren't interested. People aren't interested in the Black experience. People are interested in what the majority experience, with their experience. So you go for the majority.
Right. Well, and I think that's the bottom line. It's part of what I was talking about before. You see it in television all the time. You're writing for yourself. You're writing to satisfy yourself. You're assuming the audience is as smart and as funny and as interested as you are. And that is, unfortunately, a very tiny percentage of the stories that get told in Hollywood, but are always the best. Let me ask you one thing. We shot this. I remember seeing. We're down in Alabama, and we're a couple of crew guys were Trump supporters, but it was very clear that Hillary was going to win, and in a weird way. You were writing about a more, how do I put this, artful, hidden, pernicious racism that has suddenly under Trump exploded into unapologetic, very dangerous, chest-beating racism. And it's interesting because I think it had something to do because the movie came out like right after the inauguration, didn't it? Is that when it came out?
It did, yeah. It came out right after, February, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you're working on now, but is the problem now? It feels like dealing with the overt, uncovered racism. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, the when I first started writing Get Out, I was taking aim at what I thought as sort of more typical racist archetype, right? The Southern old money type thing, right?
Right.
And so I think, and I watched some Ira Levin films, Rosemary's Baby, Stepford Wives, classic thrillers that sort of introduced the art of the seduction of the villain. The villain needs to be seductive. So if Chris shows up and it's just it's J.R. Ewing, and that's kind of a recognizably uncomfortable position to be in. Yep, your ancestors probably own my ancestors. Great, and this is awkward. But if it's you, then I'm lulled into a false sense of security.
Right. Well, I remember I was worried. We were originally going to shoot in LA, and then for a lot of complicated reasons, we were shooting in Alabama, and I was like, are we set in Alabama? With accents and everything, and you were like, no.
Yeah.
You didn't want to locate it and minimize the universality of.
Isn't that funny how much of a different and worse movie that is?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If I'm like, hey, like there's nothing.
yeah. There's nothing.
He's just
there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But no, I think what was most remarkable to me, Brad, about the difference in these times, and I think what's happened with the more overt racism being emboldened and everything, and the film Get Out were both a reaction to the fact that a black man was elected president. And the shift that happened in the country, was enormous, and I think it really hit hard at the end of it all. It finally caught up to us, and it's scary. But I'm reminded that when we shot this film. And we were down in Alabama, and we shot it, like you say, with people who were of different political persuasions, and it was cool. I liked them.
Yeah.
And I liked the people down there. And there was this feeling of America that was still happening where, yeah, we have different beliefs, and I may even kind of think you're racist, but we're stuck here, and we're going to be cordial to one another, and then we're going to, hey, maybe we might even connect. And wouldn't that be cool if we can sort of bridge a thing? There was all these possibilities, and the vibe is,
it feels like that's gone.
He shifted the vibe, but it's crazy. Even as soon as he was voted out, Brad, I all of a sudden felt like, yeah, I could fuck with them again. I could fuck with them again. Now that he's gone, I have fun shooting this movie.
Right. No, I think everybody is unprecedented, no pun intended, thing. Look, however you felt about George Bush or Bill Clinton, either Bush, they all left, whether it was naively or in a distorted way, genuinely brokenhearted that they couldn't unite people. This guy's superpower is division, and just pouring accelerant on divisions, that most people want to overcome. But yeah, I think it'd be very tricky to go down there now and shoot that and have a bunch of people do background work in the auction scene. I think that would be tricky. Speaking of auctions, if anybody wants to bid on a signed script, I'm happy to do that. Everybody should give a lot of money. We really we need to. It's very important to support these state parties and all the people on the ground. So just please give whatever you can. One thing I'm interested in so you make this movie and it works out really well. It's sort of a best case scenario creatively, commercially, and everything. How do you deal with the white plight of your first movie blowing out of the gate like that? Does it add extra pressure to you? Do you just concentrate on the next story? Was that a difficult thing to navigate when people are not going to be surprised by the film you make, or the skill with which you make it, but are expecting it?
Well, you got to have a strategy for it, because one thing you can't do is just, you can't fail. And, you have to. And so, yeah, there was a lot of pressure, but it was mostly excitement. I never gotten to write something knowing it was going to get made.
Right.
That's a huge mentality shift. Right? So you're not throwing something into the hole to the sunken place forever. You're writing something that's actually going to happen. So really, it's my dream. It's my dream come true.
Are you? And it always makes me feel shallow. Your total lack of interest in acting. Is that true?
Yeah, total lack of interest. I
because it's shallow and anybody can do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I get to watch my. Yeah, there's a narcissism that I try to reject. I don't. I like watching my movies. I can watch my movie. I can watch the films I direct. Watching me perform just feels like it's a bad kind of masturbatory.
Because you don't enjoy it?
Yes, it's like masturbation you don't enjoy.
I don't like to watch, but I like to do it.
You like to do it, yeah.
Do you ever miss comedy in front of an audience? That stuff?
That also, I feel like I got to do so much, and it is a great feeling. But when I think about those great moments where you're just like, you're basking in something you said that feels funny, and like when I think about all that, I think I got enough of that.
Again, I feel really shallow.
Each their own. I have I say I try and fight my ego. That's because it's an absolute monster,
right?
That I keep at bay and fight. But it's.
I always tell people, like when I talk to young actors and young writers, I think what you're saying is actually something I really believe in. There is nothing dealing with insecurity when you're creating is. You need to embrace it. There is nothing worse than a totally confident actor. I won't name any, but there's nothing, there's nothing worse. And I think that part of the reason your work is so strong, subsequent to Get Out, is we're so lucky to be able to do these things. And when you get the opportunity to do it, often people say, "Oh, I know how to do it," and that's when they begin to fail, and they try to recreate, what they did before, rather than, in a humble way, explore a new story. So I really think it's important for creative people out there to accept the insecurity, and know that I always think of James Gandolfini, who was a very sweet, insecure guy, and that's the beauty of him, as an instrument. I want people to give more goddamn money before we get out of here. I have a couple of questions. Joanne from Missoula, Montana. I have white friends who didn't notice the opening scene, but every person of color who sees a young black man walking in a suburban neighborhood at night is instantly terrified. Talk about that scene and the audience response to it.
Yeah, I wanted to do something simple with that opening scene where Lakeith Stanfield, it's just absolutely absolute star performance in that film. I just love.
God, he is so such a wonderful actor.
Yeah, and a character that kind of is along with Betty Gabriel, played Georgina, and Marcus Henderson, right? The heart and soul of the movie is this people who have the post-op coagula three. The first scene, we shot it in one shot, except for I think we punched out at the end of it or something. But I wanted this movie on its very most basic principle to be like, what if they just made a horror movie about being black in America, and for it to check certain things that we know and feelings that we know, and that is one, man. And something that I feel, I love taking walks. I love taking walks alone, and this was not too long after Trayvon Martin was assassinated buying some Skittles, and just being black in America is terrifying. That's all it was. And I think part of why this audience also worked for white people was because they were able to see a couple things that or not even see a couple things, we're able to feel a couple ways they haven't been able to feel before. Mm-hmm. And I think feeling fear walking down a suburb, and not a suburb, and not because of Michael Myers out there, but because of the color of us, because we're the monster. The protagonist, Lakeith, is the outsider.
Right.
And having to take on that burden as I think Black Americans essentially have had to do, of being the Frankenstein's monster of this country. Anyway,
the racism is like the monster that I think you've said before. It's the ultimate monster that will not die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the demon.
Yeah,
and I'm cynical about humanity. I'm optimistic about some short-term goals. I'm cynical about the long term. I think our we're coded, and we're not a perfect species. we're not a species that's meant to be around forever. And I think, I don't know what we're meant for, but we're definitely the same thing that causes us to love those closest to us, causes us to fear those who are farther from us. It's just
right,
yeah.
right. I mean, it's interesting to me. One of the things that was interesting to me was
this is, by the way, this is like the least motivational.
Yeah, I was just going to say, have a great night, everybody.
Done.
Go to the polls. There is no hope. The reward is death. Have a great evening. No.
All right.
No.
You know,
What?
To a very troubled individual here, I guess. Here.
It was interesting, and I think, I always notice how segregated entertainment can be. And one of the great successes of that movie was that it was something that it was such an enjoyable ride. I do want to. I want you to talk about the ending a little bit. Because there was another ending, and I think it's interesting to people. Describe the original ending and how you got to the new one.
So the original ending, was Chris. Like the cop car rolls up. The crowd is supposed to deflate. Oh my gosh, I've been watching this sort of OTT story, and now it's going to end with if that's his story and he's caught over hanging over these dead white people's bodies, he's in trouble. The cops were meant to come out, take him down, and then Rod found him in prison.
Right.
It cuts to a few months later. Rod's trying to work on his case. There's a real downer. You can see it on the Blu-ray.
Oh, it's on the Blu-ray. But it was kind of a statement about not a direct one, but it was sort of a statement about incarceration. That at the end, mass incarceration. That where he was saying, no, I ended it, but this is what I have to do to make it end, is be in prison.
Yeah, and at some point writing the movie, I got in touch with this idea of this central fear, at least for me, with racially, is this fear of this abduction, right? It's this original fear, being being abducted from a different continent, being enslaved, being put in this dark hole, being kept in this sunken place, and realizing, that what Ava DuVernay's documentary, The 13th,
right,
makes perfect thesis is that the prison industrial system was born out of slavery. It's the evolution of slavery, and I really truly recommend that film on Netflix if anyone hasn't seen it. But yeah, so that's where it ended. I showed the film to an audience to test it, and they hated the ending, which was kind of to be expected. It was kind of a gut punch to the audience. But I think what I noticed was that Black people and white people both hated the movie, hated the ending. They just wanted him out. I just built up so much. It's like they just needed a hero. And I feel like the film might have worked, sort of maybe 4 years earlier when we were really firmly in that other type of coded racism of the Obama years that we were talking about. I feel like the original ending would have landed because it would have been more of a wake-up call. Right? But the realization when the cop shows up and the audience deflates, when that happened, from that moment forward, I don't get any more payload from the idea and the realization that Chris has just entered a whole different horror movie, and one that's real.
Right.
It's already done. So I changed it.
Well, I think it's really interesting, and I think it goes to something powerful about the movie is you can be the biggest fucking racist on the planet, and when you see that insignia on the door and realize it's Rel, everybody is laughing. And if you're laughing, then you have to accept the fact that an innocent black man confronted by a policeman is in immediate danger, whether you believe that or not. Like, I mean, I remember worrying because I knew you were messing around with the ending, and I actually think it's so interesting because it's a much less troubling, but it puts, if you're gonna laugh at that, then you have accepted the fact that black people are treated differently by police than white people. And I thought it was a really interesting thing.
That's how I thought of it too. I thought that moment, if you were somebody who was maybe thought that police brutality was over, it was not as existent as it's supposed to be, as it's claimed to be, as it is. If you are that person and that car rolls up, and if you have that reaction where of the deflation and then the cheer, the relief, it means on some level you've bought into this movie because it rings true, and you've hopefully just experienced, what a black person can experience, not committing any crimes but getting rolled up on by the police.
Yeah. And I think it's it's the power of storytelling for you to convey a very complicated, deeply felt and experienced injustice. The best way to convey that was through this horror movie, not through some essay you wrote or a description of your experiences. But there's something about that moment where I snuck into the theater. I did watch this. And I remember the explosion of laughter. And I just thought it was really profound because it was tying the bow on what the whole movie is about, or putting the nail in the coffin of knowing that you had the audience. Anyway, I could talk to you forever. I love you. I miss you. Kiss Bo. Kiss Chelsea. You. I want everybody out there. Culture is really important, but politics is the way you create your moral vision. We need to get, we need to do whatever we can these last few days to get everybody in Georgia out to vote. Your generosity will help that effort. And let's hope that Jordan's dark view of humanity doesn't happen for a long time.
A long time. It's, by the way, if I'm being called a prophet, we've got decades.
Okay, everybody. Thank you again. Please text and call your friends and family who vote in Georgia. That is the most powerful way to get people to the polls. I did a lot of work in Wisconsin. toward the very end, I was thinking, oh, no, does this really matter? Does the money really matter? It was very close. We needed all of that money. So whatever you can spare, we need to win these 2 seats this week. You can go to georgiademocrat.org/events to sign up, to phone bank, to help Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. And I thank you for joining us, Jordan. Thanks again. I miss you. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye, guys.
Peace, everybody.